Closed session is now convened.
The joint protocol session is called to order. If you could please take your seats. Keep the chatter to a minimum.
Test.
I'd like to start by thanking our speakers, of course, for doing this today. We're going to be hearing from Sheriff Daniels, Sheriff Wilmot here shortly. President Peterson as well, thank you for joining us today. And just to restate, members, we'll be receiving a briefing from our sheriffs. The Senate President's going to say a few words now.
Thank you, President Pro Tem, members of the House, for having the Senate be here with you today. We're here because Arizona communities and our southern border are in peril due to the direct negligence of Joe Biden and his administration. We have a record number of people illegally crossing the border and entering the state. Some were terrorists, human smugglers, sex traffickers, murderers, rapists, and other dangerous criminals. The astonishing amount of deadly fentanyl being pumped into our state continues to claim lives. More than 5 Arizonans die every day from overdoses. Our local county and state law enforcement personnel are overwhelmed, and they've reached their breaking point. In the absence of President Biden and his administration doing their job, you're seeing states step up, and we've got to do the same. We've got to do whatever we can to keep our communities safe from crime and the drugs. Looking forward to hearing from Sheriff Mark Daniels and Sheriff Wilmot and those who've come to speak, and look forward to getting this update and getting better informed on what we need to do to make a difference here in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, President Peterson. Sheriff Daniels, Cochise County Sheriff. Would you please come up to the podium first? Please welcome the sheriff to the House floor. It's all yours.
Thank you so much. President Peterson, Speaker Pro Tem Gratham, thank you, and distinguished members here in the gallery, whatever you all call this. Thank you for having us, and I truly mean that. As we share communities throughout the state of Arizona coming together to solve our problems, there is no better way than what we're doing today. I've been sheriff for the last 12 years, been in law enforcement since 1984, so I just hit my 40th year in law enforcement, and I'm just going to, what I'm going to present on, what my commander and what Sheriff Wilmot is going to present on today is not political based, it's community based. It's why we serve in the state, why we serve in our communities, and that is the citizens and their quality of life and their freedoms, liberties, and protections. So that's what my speech is all about. I testified here several months ago in the Judiciary Committee in U.S. Congress, and one of the Congress ladies asked me a question about politics, and I said it, and I'll say it to you all today too. I didn't come 2,000 miles to share my politics with you, like I didn't drive 180 miles to share my politics with you today. I came to share a reality of a community and what we're dealing with on this border here in Cochise County to include throughout the nation. I sit as a chairman for National Sheriff's Border Security, executive team for Western States, Southwest Border, and past president of the Arizona Sheriffs. So I'm very engaged when it comes to what goes on with sheriffs, those that are engaged. Sadly, we have those that are not, those that won't acknowledge the issue. But about 2 hours ago, I got to Phoenix, and my phone was ringing. I had another meeting earlier today, but I stepped out before I started the meeting, and it was one of my citizens. And she was crying. She could hardly speak to me. And she's like, and she's a good friend of mine. I just spoke to her yesterday on a community event we're doing down there. And I thought she lost a loved one. And I said, Debbie, what's wrong? She goes, Sheriff, a smuggler just took me out, and I'm sitting along the road, crashed. a car went. I called this. I said, just stay there. Stay there. A vehicle going over 100 miles an hour, chased by troopers, my deputies, and local police departments. They spiked the vehicle 4 times when I was talking to dispatch. I said, listen, and I said, get some units over to her. She's sitting along the road. This weekend we had a plethora of pursuits of smugglers, and I'll go through some of the stats with you here in a minute. My commander will go through some visuals and the reality of what's going on. Last weekend, we seized 373,000 fentanyl pills in Cochise County. What we see in Cochise County is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to fentanyl in this country. It is disgusting what's going on our border. It's totally disgusting. And one thing that you don't see or don't hear about is the attack on local, state, and federal law enforcement. It's happening every day at this border. I had 2 deputies almost killed last year. One had stopped a vehicle. Let me do a little history on this. He just left our local Walmart after doing CPR on an individual that had a heart attack and saved his life. Got back in his car, driving 5 miles away, sees a car speeding, spins on that car, stops it, walks up. The driver jumps out. I believe he was out of Phoenix. And he was non-compliant and starts fighting my deputy. As he's doing that, the illegal migrants in the back seat in camouflage jump out and start running. This is on one of the state highways. He starts trying to get compliance on the driver, the smuggler driver. They fall into the highway in a combat situation. My deputy gets him cuffed up, and it's all on body camera. As he's trying to pull the suspect up, he looks up and sees a car racing at him. He picks up the suspect. As he does that, the driver hits the suspect, this fleeing vehicle, kills the driver, and almost kills my deputy. The deputy performs life-saving measures on the smuggler. Sadly, he perished. Medics get there, take over medical. As they go back to the car, my deputy opens up the trunk. 2 migrants jump out of the back and fight my deputy. After he'd been through all this, I get there, and the deputy looked at me when I got there, and I go, "You all right?" He goes, "Sheriff, I wasn't trained to do this." I said, "No." He goes, "I wasn't prepared for this." I said, "No, you weren't, but you did what you had to do to survive." We had a deputy in a pursuit. I believe it was the second, third pursuit of the night, getting ready to deploy tire deflation devices on a vehicle, a female out of Phoenix. I was going over 100 miles an hour. As he deployed the spikes, she went so fast at him on that short, narrow bridge, he fell over the embankment. Some of you might have heard about this. Fell 15 feet. He is still learning how to walk. His brother, by the way, my deputy spent 20 years in the Marine Corps and retired. His brother, a former military, Navy, and Marine, was up on a path in Cochise County months before this, where he was jumped at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning by 2 migrants. They tried to get his gun. The agent got his gun out. 1 round went off before it jammed. They took a knife from the agent and cut his throat. That's the stuff you don't hear about. But that's the stuff we deal with. I had the opportunity to speak with Director Reyes back in the March, February of this year, of 2023, and I told him, and I'll tell you, start protecting these agents on this border. Start protecting these agents. Here's something else I think is important, maybe not directly to this. After we talked about the border, the director asked me, he goes, "Sheriff, there's anything else you want to share with me?" I said, "There is." Last year, 229 community cops, I'll call them heroes, were killed in this country. This might offend a few of you. If it does, sorry. I asked the director, of the 229 cops brutally, senselessly killed in their country, protecting everybody in this room, how many funerals did the president or this administration attend? And the director looked at me and I go, let me answer that for you. 0. He goes, Sheriff, that's close to my heart. I said, what do you mean by that, Director? He said, any cop killed in the community, I call the local sheriff or the local police chief. And I said, Director, I'm going to challenge you on behalf of national sheriffs to step up and start protecting law enforcement in this country, to include securing our border. Simply put, I want to thank everybody in this room and beyond, and the leadership within, for taking care of your state and taking care of sheriffs, police chief, and your CBP agents. Folks, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of this border after 4 decades, and right now, it's the ugliest I've ever seen it. And that's based on 3 objectives, based on national sheriffs: public safety, national security, and humanitarian. Simply put, and there's no politics, there's no emotions, and there's no sensitivity to that. That is the 3 objectives your law enforcement sheriffs, your national sheriffs stand for in this country. Right now, you have stood up to help us. You have stood up to help law enforcement and your citizens in this state. Cochise County couldn't do it without you. And as a result of your support, we have been somewhat successful. Because where you've partnered with us, where mayors, all my mayors in my county united along with law enforcement and sent a message to the White House and a message to U.S. Congress to step up and do their job. And I'm just going to say this to you. I'm sitting on the executive boards. Sheriff Wilmot sits with me on many of these boards. And this is something I've been fighting on really hard. We can't solve problems until we engage each other and we meet somewhere in the middle. You know that better than anybody when it comes to passing laws. But we that wear the badge on the executive side, we need you. We need this president, President Biden, and this administration to join forces with the state of Arizona at all levels. Until state, local, and federal start working together, we're in trouble. Do you realize in modern time and history at the national sheriff's level, this is the first president ever not to meet, as I sit here with the best of my knowledge, not to meet with one sheriff in this country. And that's, I'll tell you, we have tried. Major county sheriffs, Western state sheriffs, Southwest border sheriffs, and national sheriffs have come together over the last 3 years to work for the citizens in this country with invites to the president for active engagement, and we can't get a response back out of the White House. We actually spoke with some of the staff both in December and November and shared our thoughts, but they won't give us an answer. But you have stepped up. You have stepped up to do what's right. As Washington, D.C. stands abandoned, I say this, intellectual avoidance and abandonment with intended consequences. Right now, I'm dealing with the intended consequences. Let me give you an example of what's happening in Cochise County, and you're going to see some more details in just in a minute. But this is over the last 24 months, not including. This is year 22, calendar year 22, calendar year 23. In Cochise County, we have booked 2,884 people for border crimes in Cochise County. Folks, that's unheard of. That's unheard of. That represents almost 44% of all the people in my jail are border crime related, up to double-digit murders in Cochise County. That includes, you guys passed a bill that ARS 13-2323, September 28th of 2022. I thank you for that. I came up for the signing. Thank you. I came up for the signing with Governor Ducey and many of you in this room. Cochise County stood up and went after this law to enforce it. So you got to figure in about 14 months, 15 months, that law went into effect. We've arrested 566 smuggler drivers that came to Cochise County to smuggle. That is sad. People ask me all the time, about, well, these are all the illegals coming across the border, the migrants. Folks, out of the 2,884 people that were booked in my jail, only 154 were foreign-born or non-citizens. The rest, sad to say, are U.S. citizens coming from all over the country to a rural county, Cochise County, to commit international crime against us, America. That is sad. In the last 2 years, we have booked in our jail 414 felony pursuits in our county. And that's what we got our hands on. And we're a rural county with 126,000 people. The cost of my jail just for border-related incarcerations in 24 months is $9.4 million. When I say to you, thank you, because you're helping me offset that cost, we'd be in trouble. I also want to thank you when it comes to the buses. To the wisdom of our federal government, I'm not personal with that, I'm bitter with that. To the wisdom of our federal government, since post 42, around May of 2023, till the end of December, you, with your coordination at the state level and your funding and our local resources, we've had 650 buses come to Cochise County to take processed migrants out of Cochise County. Now you're thinking, wow, that many people crossing? First of all, Cochise County is a fight and flight county. We don't give ups like you see in Eagle Pass, a lot in Yuma. Sheriff Wilmot will talk on that. The federal government is busing migrants that are coming across the border outside the boundary or the proper of Cochise County and bringing them to Cochise County, a rural county, coming through an urban county, processing them and street releasing them in Cochise County. That equates to over 30,000 people have been street released in Cochise County, and thanks to you again, the state, doing your job and stepping up and helping a rural county. Gail, Dave, Loopy, thank you for being our reps down there, for doing what you do for us. I mean that. Some of the other things your money has helped us with, and I want to hit on this, I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff Wilmot, is one thing I've done as a sheriff is I enforce the rule of law. Not the political rule of law, but the rule of law. We've had 2 cops, a former cop out of Tucson Police Department and a former cop out of Chicago. Ironically, I was coming back from Phoenix, pulled into off I-10 in Benson. I was doing a media thing there, and I had about a few minutes. And I pulled in behind a vehicle in front of me, parked in the parking lot. The guy looked in the rearview mirror, saw me, and took off like a jackrabbit. And I ended up stopping him for traffic violations. He was a former cop out of Chicago, Illinois. And when he finally told me what he was doing, it was pretty obvious. When he told me what he was doing, he goes, Sheriff, this is my 6th trip to Cochise County to smuggle. And he goes, listen, Sheriff, let me just say this to you. He goes, hey, aren't you the elected sheriff? I said, yes, I am. The elected sheriff. I said, yes, I am. Hey, can you do the right thing? I can. You're under arrest. But the bottom line is the rule of law applies to everybody in this room. It's not absent based on emotions, sensitivity, or opinions or ideologies. And we charged him. My point is this. We have a criminal interdiction team. It's a 24/7 team, thanks to you all, that goes out every day and puts their lives on the line to interdict this kind of crime every day. We have a border team. Right now we have over 1,200 cameras, and we'll show you those pictures in a minute, deployed throughout the state of Arizona, from here to California, a little bit into Mexico, and then all the way, we had them all the way up into Maricopa County, addressing smugglers and smuggler routes. It's amazing. The year before last, I don't know what we had in 2023. In 2022, we had 66,000 humans coming across the border on that camera system. And we work very close with our CBP partners on that. You all helped us. Matt Gress, I want to thank you for this one. We have a new border operations center in Cochise County that you bought for us. It's the state of Arizona's border operations center that will deal with any crime connected to the border and human trafficking, financial crimes, which we have a unit that does that. And that border center, which will be open next month or two, is networked with the state of Ohio, the state of Florida, the state of Northern California, if I put different, and other parts, Georgia, to ensure that we're protecting youth and people that are servant to the cartels that are being trafficked by the cartels. Folks, this is one of a kind, and thanks to your generosity and your trust in us to put this forward, we will do what's right for you. And again, that center is yours. We'll have an opening ceremony. We'll let you know on that. And I'll say this. On behalf of Customs and Border Patrol agents and officers, they send their thank yous to you too. I have yet to find a Border Patrol agent or an officer yet approach me and say, Sheriff, it's working. We are losing so much institutional knowledge because they're retiring, they're getting out of there. I will just say this to you. We have to show some love to our federal agents, love to our deputies out there. Sheriffs, we get it. You don't have to show love to us. Our troopers out there and our police officers out there, they're putting their lives on the line. We've gone through some hell over the last several years. It's time to put the politics aside, give them a hug and say, thank you for what you do. Thank you. As I sit down, I'm blessed in so many ways. We serve a special state with special people. And I enjoy you, I respect you, and together we'll continue doing what's right for the state of Arizona. Thank you.
Sheriff Daniels, thank you. Yuma County Sheriff Wilmot.
I was scheduled to go next, sir.
You're going next.
Okay.
Let us know your name so I can have it entered in properly because I don't have it in front of me, and then go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, sir. My name is
Have the next sheriff up.
Yes, sir. My name is Bob Watkins. I serve as the Operations Commander with the Cochise County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Sheriff Daniels. Thank you, Representative Dunn. And thank you to all of you. When I was in 7th grade, I attended a civics class where I sat in those seats up there. That event was a contributing factor for me joining the Marine Corps, having an immense amount of respect for this hollowed floor, the immense amount of respect for this body and this process, and each of you. Over the last 4 years, I've interacted with numerous people from this floor, and you have reaffirmed my trust and my faith in this process, and I want to thank each of you for helping the citizens of Cochise County. Thank you. Representative Dunn told me right before we came in here how busy your afternoon is, so I have to condense an already condensed presentation. If any of you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I am here to serve you. I am here to facilitate any type of event for you. If you want a tour, if you want anything, please reach out to me, but I'm rushed for time, so I got to brush through this. I'm going to bypass a couple of these videos to save some of your time. To be candid, you're not going to believe what I have to say unless you have heard me talk before or I've interacted with you before. To give value to what I'm saying, if you have Facebook, I beg you to scan that QR code and go to our Facebook page, and you will see at least 5 catastrophic events within the last 7 days that would make you fearful to live in our community. This is something real world that our citizens in Cochise County live and experience every day. Just this morning, one of our deputies' vehicles was damaged during a pursuit, and this is real to us. So please check out our Facebook page and you'll see what we're dealing with. Cochise County, if you're not aware, is southeast of Tucson. We have 83 miles of border fence. We have 99 sworn deputies, and we're the 38th largest county in the country. Cochise County has an amazing and rich history. Wilcox, Arizona was once the cattle king of the entire country. We have amazing an amazing military intelligence apparatus through Fort Huachuca. We have Bisbee. We have a copper history. We have so much stuff going on for Cochise County. It was once ranked, Sierra Vista, Arizona was once ranked the 25th best place to live in the entire country. It's an amazing community. However, all of that is overshadowed by the border issue. You cannot Google Cochise County within the top 5 results and find at least 2 or 3 incidents that would make a normal community uproar. They would demand accountability for something. And one of the things that we have, you heard my sheriff say that we get in all these pursuits, one of the frequent conversations we have is, well, what if you just don't pursue? We actually tried that. We tried not pursuing. And people continue to die left and right, whether we chase these individuals and hold them accountable or not. This is what the border looks like on the Montezuma Pass, just on the west side of the Montezuma Pass. You can see there's no fence, no border barrier, anything like that. The top left photo with the maroon car, that picture was one of the events that started the change in our operational practices. That was from February 28th of 2021. A 16-year-old valedictorian with no nexus to criminal activity. Sheriff Lamb actually knew the family. The 16-year-old girl was on TikTok and Instagram and got an advertisement to come down to Sierra Vista, Arizona and make some quick money. This is not your deviant little children, the rebellious teenagers, anything like this. This is a normal human being with no nexus to criminal activity. She and her girlfriend jumped in a car, drove down to Sierra Vista, Arizona. They were promised $2,500 per migrant to transport 4 migrants from Sierra Vista to to Phoenix. Ask yourself what teenager would not enlist to make $10,000 in 6 hours. How do you curtail that? She saw a Border Patrol agent before she even picked up, and she took off at over 100 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. She collided with another vehicle, and she had to be medevaced, and there was 3 young ladies in that car, actually. One of them had a brain bleed, 2 of them almost died. Sheriff Lamb had to go personally do the death notification. Again, no one was chasing this kid. The incident to the top right, I have a longer story with this, but I'm pressed for time. But this was March 1st, 2021. A 16-year-old kid came down to Cochise County, picked up 4 migrants, and we actually had aerial assets out that night, so he didn't know that we had a Border Patrol helicopter. He took off from Border Patrol, and he began traveling at over 120 miles an hour through Sierra Vista at roughly 6 p.m., and no one was chasing him. As he continued north on Highway 90, if you've ever been there, kind of a visual representation, once he passed Huachuca City, he went into oncoming traffic and started traveling north in the southbound lanes without his headlights on at 140 miles per hour. And he had 4 people in the trunk of his car. So no matter which end of the political spectrum you fall, pro-border security, pro-migration, this is the biggest threat to our community that we have. And I ask you, who's standing up for the rights of the migrants as these events continue to transpire? Being thrown in the trunk of a vehicle being driven by a 16-year-old kid at 140 miles an hour is not humanitarian. Arizona is currently the fentanyl capital of the country. Over 51% of all fentanyl seized in 2022 was seized in Arizona. Of that, 24% of all fentanyl seized in the entire country was seized in either Cochise or Santa Cruz County. This was a seizure last week. We seized, one of our partners seized 373,000 fentanyl pills in Douglas. 373,000 fentanyl pills. This is just a representation of where Cochise County is in the Tucson sector. In 2022, 44% of all people that were apprehended illegally entering the country were seized in the Tucson sector of the United States Border Patrol. I'll say it again, 44% of all people who came into the country illegally, this is not the people that are lining up at the ports of entry to seek asylum, this is not that. These people came across our border wearing head-to-toe camouflage. 44% of those people were seized in Tucson sector of the United States Border Patrol, of which Cochise County is a significant part. In 2022, we booked 1,578 people into CCSO jail. 1,500 were U.S. citizens. 601 people between March 1st of 2022 and December 31st of 2022 were 601 people were feloniously victimized by border-related crimes. And when we talk about border-related crimes, what is that? Is that, is that an immigration violation? No. This is somebody being thrown in the trunk of a car and a car driving 70 miles an hour in a 15-mile-an-hour zone and hitting an elderly woman in a crosswalk. That's considered a border crime. So ask yourself, what does 601 additional felony crimes do to your property value and your quality of life in 9 months? I wish I had more time with you to describe what our camera systems are, but in 2017 we created a digital surveillance apparatus using game trail cameras where we are able to get pictures in real time. We began embedding them on known smuggling, both drug and human, smuggling corridors across Cochise County. It was super effective. In 2022, we apprehended 25,500, meaning we physically coordinated the apprehension of 25,500 people of the 66,620 people that were detected on our surveillance cameras. And this is what they look like. Head-to-toe camouflage, mostly military-age males. How does it begin? People are recruited from across the world off social media platforms, various social media platforms, and they are convened in South America, and they're coordinated based on severity and how much money you want to pay dictates where you want to go. Think of Amazon shipping lines. Depending on where you want to go, if you have a minimal amount of money and you can get in the country legally, you go somewhere nice, like Yuma, San Diego, somewhere like that. If you do not meet the qualifications to seek asylum, as outlined by the federal government right now, you have to pay 6 times that amount to come in through the Tucson sector. So what happens, they get to the border, they come across the border, and then the cartel recruits people from across the country. To my knowledge, we have had a smuggler from every state in the lower 48 fly into Phoenix, come down to Cochise County, and participate in smuggling. One of my most favorite stories, which is tragic, is a 14-year-old kid from one of the Dakotas flew in, it was 12. It was a 12-year-old kid. 12-year-old kid flew in from one of the Dakotas, flew into Sky Harbor Airport, used his mom's Toro app to rent a car, drove down to Cochise County, picked up 4 migrants and was apprehended heading north. There's something wrong with this system. But it's openly broadcast on social media. I could go on and on about how social media is the biggest threat to this whole process. They're promised $2,500 per migrant. They get picked up, and then the drivers of the vehicles are either threatened with physical violence, or they are told, hey, flee, drive into oncoming traffic, do whatever you got to do, the law enforcement will stop chasing you. I wish that picture was staged. That is not. That is the real pursuit that terminated on top of a children at play sign. Between October 30th of 2021 and December 31st of 2022, 9 people died in smuggling-related pursuits. Real quick, and I'm almost done. In October of 2021, a 65-year-old woman by the name of Wanda Satoski, and I've dedicated myself to that family to share this story wherever we go and we talk about the border. She retired on her 65th birthday. She was meeting her adult son for lunch. Mr. Representative Diaz, this person is from Benson. I know you've met with them. But she was going to her birthday party. She retired that day, and she was simply doing what her God-given right was, is to travel on Highway 90. At that same time, a 17-year-old kid by the name of Felix Mendez from Mesa, Arizona, drove down to Cochise County, loaded up 4 migrants, threw them in the back of his car. Tombstone Marshal's office tried to pull him over. He takes off. 2 migrants flee from the back of the car. TMO stops to render aid. The guy continues driving at over 100 miles an hour in a 45 and 55 on our zone. He passes through the intersection, which, by the way, Wanda had the green light. He runs a red light at the intersection of Highway 82 and Highway 90 at over 100 miles an hour. He split Wanda's car in 2, and she died in a fiery inferno. Her son passed through that same intersection, saw the collision, and didn't recognize the car. Sheriff Wilmot will talk about the left. We have 2 separate border issues from the same border crisis. We have the crisis, the humanitarian crisis of millions of migrants seeking asylum, and then we have over here on the right, people illegally entering the country. Our Sabre cameras, for the military veterans in the room, that's a real picture that we detected on our Sabre cameras. That's what we see, a guy wearing a balaclava, carrying an AR-15, here in native soil, walking around our country. 94 pounds of meth. Anybody that says that hard drugs do not come across the border in backpacks, that's a lie. I have the digital evidence to prove it. Childhood 2.0, this, if you have an interest, go ahead and scan this QR code. It will take you to a very good documentary talking about how social media is reshaping the brain of children, contributing to drug abuse, mental unwellness, teen suicide, all this other stuff. And that's me. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry to be so brief, but Sheriff Wilmot has a very important story to share. Thank you.
Sheriff Daniels and Commander Watkins, thank you. Yuma County Sheriff, Sheriff Wilmot.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. President and Speaker Pro Tem, distinguished guests. Thank you for the kind invitation. I'm not sure where we're at on time. I know Sheriff Daniels can be a little loquacious sometimes, so just throwing that out there. So Yuma County, I do want to warn everybody, this is what our officers see out in the field each and every day. So if you have a weak stomach, this is the reality of the border and what our troops deal with all across the southwest border. So there is going to be some stuff that's rather graphic. I'd say I'm sorry, but we have to deal with it, so you get to see it. So 4 states, 31 counties, 1,954 miles. We got 4 counties that cover the border: Cochise, Santa Cruz, Pima, and Yuma. For us in Yuma County, I have a different situation and different geographic concerns that I have to deal with versus Cochise County. I have 2 states in Mexico that border Yuma County. So I have Baja California, which is basically run by the CJNG, the cartel Jalisco New Generation. Then I have Sonora, Mexico on the southern part of my county, the Sinaloa cartel, which everybody is quite familiar with. So for Yuma County, a little over 5,500 square miles, population of roughly 200,000. During the winter season, because of agriculture and winter visitors, you can add another 100,000 on top of that. Agriculture and cattle feed yards is basically predominant in Yuma County. And I have 2 tribal reservations in my county as well. One that's directly on the border along the river corridor, that'd be the Cocopah, as well as the Kashan to the north part of the county. We also have 2 major military installations where that comes into play for us, and that's the MCIS Yuma and U.S. Army YPG. We have 2 ports of entry that are right along the border area, as well as 1 commercial port of entry further east of San Luis. So the river corridor, this kind of gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. You do have some fencing, but what you do see is Normandy barriers and other parts of our border, and that's where the cartels are exploiting that weakness along our border. We also have to deal with the remote desert. So we're talking about areas where individuals are being dropped by the cartels, told to call 911, and in most cases they're anywhere from 30 to 80 miles away from any civilization. Some of the stuff that we are dealing with the criminal element, obviously, is our tractor thefts, vehicle thefts, and smuggling. In the very beginning, the sheriff's office actually had to find funding to be able to purchase and work with Bureau of Reclamation to put up those yellow gates on the canals to save our farmers from losing their tractors. Another big part of ours, much like Cochise County, is the urban and rural pursuits that we end up dealing with, were the smugglers. Because of our location closer to the interstate, we don't have the long distance pursuits like Cochise County does. We end up with the shorter ones in town. I know we work closely with our federal partners each and every day, where we've identified already to date right now that we're working on is 10 known smuggling houses, stash houses for lack of a better term. A big part of what we have to deal with are the rapes, robberies, and the homicides, deaths in the desert, and doing rescues. Like I said, the cartels exploit the weaknesses. They'll send off large groups into one area along our border. Give you an idea, our population is roughly 200,000. In 2022, there were 310,000 give-ups along that river corridor. I have 112 miles of international boundary with Mexico. So while they're tying up Border Patrol's resources, which, by the way, is the 2nd smallest Border Patrol station in all the country, 800 agents to handle 310,000, while we had 27,000 getaways out in the eastern desert because there were no Border Patrol resources to cover that area. That's why Arizona is known as having 51% of the responsibility of fentanyl getting into this country and killing those that we serve. This is just some of the ideas that the cartels and the criminal element come up with to get their product across. T-shirt cannons, ultralights, catapults, tunnels, and GPS piloted drones, as well as trying to breach the fence. Another part of what we're dealing with is environmental impacts, especially along the river corridor. The migrants that are coming across illegally are actually leaving all their trash as well as pharmaceuticals along our river. This is not good for wildlife. This is not good for recreation for the local citizens that used to recreate in these areas, because now they're left like this. I've gone down, these are stuff that I picked up. Each and every day you can go down to my border and pick up passports and identification cards of individuals from 160 different countries that have entered the country illegally in my county, who have already been granted the ability to live and work in a different country where they wanted to get away from their asylum issues that they were dealing with in their home country. But because they don't want to be there, they want to come to the U.S., they will dump their IDs and assume somebody else's identification. The problem that we have is not all countries cooperate with the United States in regards to doing adequate criminal history checks on the individuals that are coming across the border. So they're exploiting the asylum laws that we currently have in effect. Cross-border violence. I think last year in San Luis, which was right across from our sister city, San Luis, Arizona, they had over 123 homicides just this last year. And a lot of those individuals that are killed by the cartels are law enforcement officers that will not cooperate with them. These are actually some members of the cartel that were trying to cut the border fence, and I happened to drive up, so I actually took that picture. They were waving, but not with all their fingers, as you can tell. What I wanted to go into is solutions and needs, because everybody has different challenges. One of those that I want to commend each and every one of you for is the Arizona Department of Homeland Security. Those folks that work for you and us are doing a phenomenal job, to the point that even our federal partners in Washington, D.C. have said if they could get every state's Homeland Security to work like Arizona's, it would be so much smoother for them. So when you get a chance, please thank the Arizona Department of Homeland Security. They've been a great partner for not only us in Yuma County, but every sheriff throughout the whole state. They handle what's called Stone Garden. Yes. We as sheriffs could not do what we're doing without your support, without their support, and without federal grant monies coming in, which they distribute. And they handle that, and they coordinate with us to make sure that we can purchase certain equipment to meet our needs, that we can utilize that overtime money for our officers to go out and be able to use the right equipment to detect, deter, and apprehend those individuals that are either smuggling hard narcotics or individuals into this country to exploit them, which happens on a frequent basis. So I got to give kudos to them. I also want to thank you for the National Guard. Our Arizona National Guard in Arizona is phenomenal, and they deserve a big hand too. The Buckeye systems that Sheriff Daniels talked about are in my county as well, and the National Guard is a big part of that operation. They help us, as well as Cochise and other counties, to be able to go out and maintain those systems and actually monitor the systems and detect nefarious activity, to be able to get a hold of dispatchers throughout the state if they're not monitoring it on their own. And I know he's working with New Mexico right now, so Arizona's pretty proud of that, and I got to thank Tim back there for pushing that for us to expand all those cameras, because without that, we wouldn't be able to detect or deter and apprehend these individuals out in our remote deserts. One of the things that sheriffs deal with each and every year is SCAP, State Criminal Alien Apprehension Program. And that's where we need your help, is making sure that our federal government properly reimburses us for the costs that are associated with housing individuals entering this country illegally and committing state crimes. Now, if you look at these numbers up there, Arizona sheriffs basically eat about $30 million a year. But you don't see that up there because they changed the criteria. So for instance, I had over 450 migrants that entered the country illegally, committed a state crime, that were in my jail. I could only ask for reimbursement if they were in my jail for 4 or more days, had 2 misdemeanors, or 1 felony charge. Unless they had that, I can't ask for reimbursement. And none of that covers our medical costs as well. And that's a heavy hit for us. It's about $1 million roughly almost every year for Yuma County alone that I do not get reimbursed for. And medical costs can be astronomical, especially when you're dealing with individuals coming from countries that don't have adequate health care. I had one in my jail that needed dialysis 3 times a week for the whole time that he was there. Their average length of stay in our jails is over 100 days, where a normal average length of stay in a jail is 23. So we have to address all those medical issues. It about broke our bank. So I would ask for your support on that. What is the impacts? For us in Yuma County, whenever these groups cross the remote desert, they're crossing the Barium Goldwater Range. Yuma County is well known for the training grounds for not only the Marine Corps, but the Army, and also many militaries throughout different countries that come down and fly, and they're also on the ground. When we detect individuals crossing that border on the Barium Goldwater Range, that aircraft that's sitting on the flat line waiting to take off to go out and train is not allowed to do that, because Border Patrol or whoever is closer has to respond to that area to try to clear them out so they can actually utilize those areas for their training before they get deployed overseas, which is vitally important for our military right now. Our hospital, $26 million in auditable cost happened to that hospital in Yuma County because in a 6-month period. And it tied up the neonatal ward at that particular time, and individuals that were scheduled for appointments were canceled because they had no more room. That's an impact that you're going to see in hospitals throughout the whole nation now. Our NGOs, if it wasn't for one NGO in Yuma County, I would probably have 3,000 individuals released into our society with nowhere to go and no way to get out. Mission. When we were overwhelmed and Border Patrol could not respond, individuals were actually walking up to our mission and demanding food and a place to stay. They were actually Googling on their cell phone detention center and walking up to my jail to turn themselves in. That's how bad it was at one time for us. Our food bank was dealing with the same issues, trying to get enough food to the mission to be able to help feed. The food safety was a big hit. All along our river corridor, as you've seen, was agriculture. Anytime those individuals crossed and they weren't able to be apprehended, they were defecating in the fields, littering in the fields, trampling on all of the produce that was being grown. Because of food safety, those farmers are not able to harvest that portion of the crop. That's a pretty heavy hit when you have to cut out an acre of celery that you cannot harvest because it's been trampled by individuals coming in across illegally. So now the counties had to pick up that cost because we now have to pay for porta-johns all along our river corridor to keep people from doing that down in our farm fields. It's about $70,000 a year for Yuma County just to pay for porta-johns to keep that from happening. City and county budget impacts. A lot of our smaller communities have one ambulance, and when individuals cross illegally and call 911, that takes that resource away from that city, and they have to call in other resources. That's another cost that's borne on them, unfortunately, and it's been an impact. SAR resources, I know we answered, I think it was 311 911 calls to be rescued just at the sheriff's office, not on top of what Border Patrol also had. I covered the jail costs, county attorney and the courts. When you look at the deaths in the desert, we had 70 deaths in 2022, 2023 calendar year. I had 23. I've had over 160 different countries across my border, and some of those, as you've seen, you have to do DNA. That's a cost on the state because I have to send all that to DPS. And then we have to try to work with the different consulates. That's time on us because we have to process those crime scenes and then try to determine where these folks are from, coordinate with the consulates to try to get those individuals identified and then back to those countries. So that's another added issue that we have to address on our budgets. So with that, Mr. President, I will open it up for questions, but anytime anybody has anything, please feel free to give us a call.
Members, we do have a few minutes. If there's a few questions, I'd ask that you press your request to speak button and we can maybe get a few of those. If not, Representative Quinones, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. May I ask a question, make a comment?
Questions?
Questions.
Let's respect everybody's time and try to keep it to questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I'd like to direct my question to the last individual, given that your presentation was just steered on facts and some of the serious issues that you're encountering in Yuma. If you had to break it down to 2 or 3 things that you need from the state? I know that you've mentioned resources a lot, but again, your approach to focusing on the issue and how we can be of support without turning the issue into politics was really refreshing. So I'm curious to know, what are 2 or 3 things that you feel that this legislative body can do to better enhance and support your efforts?
Sheriff Wilmot.
Yes, thank you. The one thing for Yuma County, and I can't speak for Sheriff Daniels in his county, it might cover both, but the biggest thing is your support on Homeland Security issues that you've been doing this last fiscal year. That was astronomical on being able to support us with those Border Strike Force funds. That was able to address a lot of the 911 calls that I explained earlier. Our main focus is to go out there and rescue people so they don't die. So we were able to utilize funding given to us by you for our helicopter, which we had no air asset. For many years in Yuma County, we relied on the Marine Corps search and rescue, but then the Marine Corps shut that down. So that was a big thing, is your support financially to be able to get that asset, to be able to go out there and do those rescues. The ability for Arizona DOHS to be able to work with us, also for that funding through the Border Strike Force monies, to be able to purchase the cameras, the software infrastructure, working with them as well on the cyber crimes, which we started working with them here recently on, has been astronomical. The biggest thing that we want to expand on is we need to start hammering the cartels and their finances. And I've got one deputy that is working part-time that is working with banks under the intel wise. I don't want to get into it because it's public, but there are ways that we can look at different scenarios where he's already identified, just in Yuma County, over $13 million being funneled from Yuma into Mexico. So our hope is to be able to expand on intel and officers that are FinVest, financial investigators, to be able to start hitting the cartels where the money is. We hit them there, we can put them in a hurt. So, thank you,
Members,
sir.
we're going to entertain 2 more questions in the order I received them up here. I'm going to ask the sheriffs and the commander to stick around after we adjourn in just a little bit. If members do have questions that don't get asked and answered, please come forward and ask. Representative Gress and Biasucci, you'll go, and then we're going to wrap this up. Representative Gress.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I have a question for both Sheriff Wilmot and Sheriff Daniels. Should we finish the wall?
Either one of you.
Absolutely.
Like to answer that, please feel free.
And that's part of the reason why Cochise is having the issues they have. So 127 miles roughly for Yuma Sector Border Patrol, 112 miles for Yuma County. Part of it goes into El Centro sector into California. Because of the gaps that I have, there was a lot of politics on dealing with the farm issue. We, as a community, asked for containers to be put down there to stop individuals from going into the farm fields. No matter what anybody says, and they can spin it any way they want, it helped our farmers by putting those there to stop the flow and keep them from going into the fields, as well as people that were being abandoned by the cartels and the smugglers out in the remote areas where we have fencing but no gate. They were being left out there. I've run into people by myself 30 miles out in the desert, a group of 9, that they were dropped by the cartels after they paid their money and said, it's not far to walk, but if you need help, call 911. That's what we deal with. So yes, finishing the fence will help. It's hard infrastructure. It was already there. They just didn't finish it. So I think in Yuma, there's only 7 miles left to get done, as well as the electronic infrastructure, the cameras, the sensors, which all of that was stopped as well.
Sheriff Daniels, did you want to add to that? Sure. Please proceed.
Representative Gress, and you've seen our border down there, and I say this all the time, you know, a barrier is a symbol of trespass. Ask yourselves how many people have fencing at their own personal property. It sets the standard, number one. It's a comprehensive answer to your question, though, the physical barriers fencing does work, no doubt about it. Nobody's going to argue that with you. But it has to be supported through humans. It has to have staffing on the border. If you drive our border in Cochise County, which is 83 miles, sadly, you're lucky to see an agent maybe every 30, maybe 40 miles you'll see an agent down there because they've been depleted so bad. So you got to have the human factor behind any kind of technology or physical barrier. But yes, fencing, physical barriers do work. And when people debate that with me, I said, do you have a fence at your house? Why do you have that there too? Same thing.
Thank you. Majority Leader Biasucci and or your seatmate, Senator Borelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. If you'll indulge the Senate to engage here.
Questions only.
Thank you very much. Sheriff, I have two questions, and it's two-part. So with respects to the State Guard, are they doing anything more than just logistical support? And if you would like to see more expanded support other than logistics, would you be welcome to that? And also the other question I have is, how many of your officers or your deputies have bounties put on them by the cartels? Thank you.
Who'd like to go first? Sheriff Daniels, go ahead.
Thank you. So we have worked the National Guard in a support role with the cameras. You put 1,200 cameras throughout the southern border of Arizona so we can tell you exactly what's coming across the border. They were a huge part of maintaining the maintenance of those cameras. We also used them in our jail. As I showed with the numbers in our jail, having that extra logistical support in our jail was outstanding for us. And plus for the safety of it all too. We've asked for additional guardsmen to go back in our jail again to help us. Our jail's 40 years old, so all the resources we can get in there. It goes back to the physical barrier, the human side of it. Now when it comes to the bounty, sad to say, in my 4 decades, this is the first time I've seen so much boldness by the criminal cartels toward law enforcement. And we've had the incidents down there. My son was actually involved in a shooting with the cartels where they tried to kill him, and he shot and killed one of them. The next day, they called my office and said, tell the sheriff, they called from Mexico, we're going to kill him. That's unheard of. We've had bounties on my border team that they're going to take when they're out there deploying cameras or working in the field, that they were going to kidnap my border deputies and kill them. And then we had a hit, I'm just giving you a couple highlights here, a hit where I got a call from 2 different federal agencies, one at 8 o'clock at night and one was at 6 o'clock at night, saying, Sheriff, they're coming across the border and they're going to kill an undercover officer. And by the last call I got, it was actually turned out to be, it was a hit on my office and one of my deputies, based on the fact we were stopping the business flow coming across that border. We activated, we lost 2 of them. Sad, we lost 2 of them. They got back across the border before we got a chance to get our hands on them. But that just shows you how abrasive they are, these criminal cartels. I could take you to my county right now on the U.S. side, and they can look at you, you can look at them, and they're there every day guiding drugs and guiding people. And I just need to disclaim this to you too. There is a difference between human smuggling and trafficking, but that's a real fine line, folks. The cartels don't care about you or the people. This is humanitarian at its worst. I've said it before, I'll say it again. That's modern day slavery that we're watching happen every day. That's not humane. So,
Sheriff Wilmot.
So the 450 that I spoke about that were in my jail last year, a number of them were MS-13 and the Mexican Mafia. So yes, a number of us have been.
Thank you both. President Peterson, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, this is evident, folks. We have a huge problem. And it's encouraging to hear the governor speak out on this issue. I think the media takes it a lot more seriously when they hear a Democrat governor say that President Biden and the federal government are failing us. But we need your actions to match your words. Last session, 3 very good border bills were vetoed. The barriers, you removed the barriers, Governor. Governor, sign our border bills. Starting with, there will be many, and Democrats, work with us on this issue. Let's work together, legislature. Let's get some real solutions. And let's start with Senator Gowan's bill that will be getting dropped soon. We've got some solutions, and let's support these men. I don't know about you guys. Wow, how many of you guys would like to do what they're doing and deal with what they're dealing with? And the numbers we're talking about and what's leveled against them. So God bless you guys. Thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for being here today.
Sheriff Daniels, Sheriff Wilmot, Commander Watkins, thank you. Thank you, members, for attending, being respectful. Joint session is now dissolved.